like some like medicine or something. Like I think I got some cough drops as well, or maybe a bit of like medicine if you have like a cold. I also have like a bit of medicine too for like, runny noses and stuff. Though I don't know if the medicine would work very good for you humans. The dosage might be a little off, but I mean, we could try if you're feeling that bad. Oh, what's that? You're not here for any of that. You've already had some medicine earlier. Oh, I see. Well, what are you here for then? So, well, if you aren't here for any, like, medicine or anything for your sickness, what are you here for then? What is it that you need? Because I would be willing to help you with whatever you need. I mean, if you're feeling sick, I would like to help you out. You are my most dearest friend. Huh? What's that? You have you have like this big writing project for a university class. I see. And what about it? What about that writing project? Oh, you want me to help you write you want me to help you in writing it? I see. I'm not so sure. It's just, while I would like to help you, I do realize that you're probably not feeling the best, and so you probably don't have the energy to write, but it's just like, it's kind of your assignment though, and I mean, I don't really want to do your assignment for you, because like, how are you gonna learn from it if you, don't do the assignment yourself? I mean, I don't want to take away your opportunity to learn, even though I do want to help you out. I mean, why don't you like wait a few days to like start feeling better, and then after you can start writing the whatever you have to write. Wait, it's due tomorrow. No. When did you get this project if it's due tomorrow? You got it 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. And it's due tomorrow. Why'd you wait so long to get it done? You were busy playing a new game. Come on, come on. You could have at least started on it. Like, I know it's fun to play games, but you could have at least started on it. Like, fine then. If it's due tomorrow, you don't really have a lot of time to recover then before you So if it's due tomorrow, I guess I'll help you out. Okay. But in exchange, I can't just have you leaving, okay? Because I want you to at least get some of the knowledge that you were supposed to be getting doing this project, so I need you to stay here with me, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is, as I'm writing whatever this is that you want me to write, I'm just gonna, talk about what I'm writing so that hopefully, even though you're not gonna get the full experience that you would if you're writing it yourself, I'm hoping you still, kind of get a little bit of the knowledge and experience just hearing me talk about it, so at least it's not like you're losing out on all of the experience. But, anyways, what is it that you even wanted me to write anyway? What is it that you're writing projects? Like, what are you writing? Everything. What do you mean, everything? What do you mean you're writing everything? You're writing, are you telling me you're writing a small story, like a small non-fiction story about like a broad overview about everything that has happened in the world, like everything, whether it be history, technology, just everything? You're joking, right? There's no way your project would be that broad of a topic about to be just everything. Wait, what? That's not what the project is specifically. Wait, are you telling me that the writing project you got from your university class was to just write a story, but you chose to write a non-fiction story about everything in the world? Are you telling me you didn't have to choose this? You, of your own volition, chose to write about everything, like a non-fiction everything story. Why would you do that? Why are you overcomplicating it? Why would you not just write like a small fiction story? Like, would it not be easier to just write like a little, I don't know, funny little story about like a funny little character going on like an adventure or something, like something simple? Why are you trying to make this huge overview of all of history and everything in the world, all crammed down into a small story? Why? That doesn't make sense. You know what? You said that you don't have to write that story, right? You said that the project was just to write any kind of short story on anything. So here's what I'm gonna do. Why don't we switch away from that idea and just write something simpler, like just a simple fiction story that we can, make up our own stuff. That way we don't gotta put all these details, all these information in. Wait, we can't. Why can't we? Why can't we just switch the book topic? You said that the assignment was just to submitted the idea to your professor. So you've already submitted your nonfiction overview of everything book idea to your professor, and it's too late to change it. Oh, no. Okay then, I guess I'll just have to write this book idea then. Why'd you have to make this so much more complicated? Like, I don't want to be mean, I know you're sick, but could you not have just chosen something a little bit more simple? But fine. Since you are my most dearest friend, I will get this done for you, okay? But you will be sitting down here and keeping and consuming the information I tell you, because if I have to sit here and waste my time writing this overly complicated book, you are also going to have to sit here too, okay? You could have made this so much simpler, but I know I've already said that. I'll stop getting on you about that, as we probably don't have a lot of time actually. If this is due tomorrow and I have to write an entire book, we should probably get started already. You go take a seat, okay? Go take a seat in front of my laptop that I need to take out. Actually, let me just... There. Now, let me just open it up. Okay, now I'm all nice and ready, okay? But here, let me start writing. I guess I should just start at the beginning. Okay, so at the beginning there was dust and things and I think elements and stuff. And then those elements and stuff, they all kind of came together and things and formed these stuff in space, like stars and planets and things. And then after some time, Earth was formed. And all the stuff on it, the volcanoes, the land, the seas, they all slowly formed together. But as it happened, sometime later, these little one-cell organisms came to be. They started kinda simple, but as time went on, they got a bit more complicated and a bit more complicated. And as that happened, they grew bigger and bigger and more complicated. And then some started to come together and would eventually form these multi-celled organisms. And then these would form little kind of animal things in the sea, and all these different kind of creatures that are long gone now. some of them decided to leave out of the sea and the oceans and head out to land. And then, after some time, these creatures on land, they would get more and more complicated as time went by. They would go farther and farther inland, farther and farther away from the sea that they once called home a long time ago. Their ancestors once called home. And as they would evolve, soon they would eventually become what we now call dinosaurs. Like the nice, cool Triceratops. Or the powerful T-Rex. Or the flying pterodactyl. Or the big Bronchiosaurus. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. That's the one with the big long neck, I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah. Put that in. But yeah, write that in. But as this happened, the dinosaurs, they came. And many of them, they thrived. There's a lot of dinosaurs. But soon, other creatures would also start to develop stuff with fur and like mammals and things. And a lot of other random creatures besides the dinosaurs. And then eventually, some stuff happened, some big deal stuff happened. There was like an asteroid and a lot of gold. And then eventually, all of these bad stuff eradicated the dinosaurs. But the other animals and stuff, they continued on to outlive the dinosaurs, and they continued to evolve. And I think that can be like our first paragraph. Maybe I'll break that down to a few paragraphs actually, but that'll be the beginning of the story. Okay, now let's get to the next part. And so, after those dinosaurs were gone, the other creatures evolved. Soon there came to be this hairy creature. It's like a monkey-like creature. I think it's a monkey, right? Yeah. And then that creature, it would evolve more and more and start to get smarter and smarter until it evolved into like an ancestor of the humans. It grew smarter and smarter as it started to kind of be able to use tools. And things developed more and more until the most ancient humans came around. And they started to use tools and stuff as they hunted down animals. Very primitive tools, nothing too complicated yet. Just like spears maybe. And like stones and things. those plants themselves. And with that, humans, they started to farm. And agrarian kind of like societies came together as they started to farm more and more and had to rely less on moving around to get food. Instead, they could farm their food. And as this came to be, as humans started to farm, they started to grow in population as they could now more properly sustain a much larger population. This would eventually lead to the increase in technologies and the arts and many different roles and jobs, as now not everyone needed to get food, but instead some humans could focus on other things that allowed the creation of new stuff. But as time passed, populations grew larger and larger, and civilizations started to form around. Ancient civilizations started to form around rivers, where water was easy to gather and farming was much more possible. And these civilizations and societies would grow bigger and bigger as they slowly made more and more new technologies and advancements. Their populations continued to grow. Fast forward some time, the civilizations, they continue to grow to gigantic heights. But as this happened, clashes, of course, grew in scale as well. The civilizations would fight and go to war with one another for resources and many other things. And all the while, populations continue to grow, and new technologies slowly allow for bigger and bigger populations, and more new things were able to be done. Then, fast forward some time, kingdoms were forming, and as these large kingdoms but they would have to swear their loyalty to the king and help in times of need and war. As all of this happened, more and more technologies flourished, including new technologies for fighting and war. And also, there was the domestication of animals. This actually happened some time ago before the feudal kingdoms, but now the domestication of animals, and specifically the domestication of horses, allowed for armies to travel on horses and knights to travel on horses and fight one another in large battles, cavalry and such. And as technology progressed, cities became stronger with the use of stone walls and stuff, and kingdoms would begin to build like forts and fortifications, and it became harder for a simple army to just invade a place. So siege weapons would be made to destroy those fortifications and allow armies to invade these forts and castles and towns and such. And as they became stronger, as the towns and castles became stronger, so would the siege weapons to catch up with them. But eventually, there was a new weapon discovered. It was this explosive substance, gunpowder, which would eventually be used to make weapons that would allow even the simple soldier to do much more damage from afar. Though these weapons were not yet the most accurate or reliable, but this marked a new era in human history. Okay, so that should be a pretty good part to, like a good next section for the story. So we'll just end that part off there and then begin like the next section of paragraphs and everything. Okay. Let's begin next parts of the story. And so, with the rise of the use of gunpowder, stronger and stronger, better, more reliable weapons would be made with it, changing the tide of war, changing how war and battles were fought for good. This would change how battles were fought, ending the era of swords and bows and knights, slowly and steadily. But around this time, while all of this was happening, in the background, unbeknownst how they would be known by humans. Of course, the species of what you humans call talking cats most of the time, you know, we actually have a name for our species, but since it can't really be pronounced in human, it can't really be pronounced in you guys' human languages very well, I will just, and because most humans just know us as like talking cats, even now that we are becoming more known, I would just keep writing it as talking cats in the story, okay? Since it's not really possible to translate our actual name of our species to your guys' human language, okay? So around this time, unbeknownst to the humans, the talking cats would also start to emerge on Earth from a distant world. With this arrival would also bring magic to the world, though at the time it was still very small, so not yet were any humans able to use it. But the talking cats, most of them at this time were still able to use this magic. Though not many of them did quite yet, as they were still preoccupied with trying to blend in to human society secretly, and did not yet want to stand out. And so, going back to the humans, gunpowder continued to advance, and these kingdoms would grow, and some of these kingdoms would grow into empires as they sought out distant lands to expand their power and influence, no matter the cost. But at the same time, as this would happen, the talking cats, they would use this new age of exploration as an opportunity to travel to these distant lands where they were less noticeable and could more easily act out in public without being so easily noticed. And with this ability to more easily act out due to the distant natures of these distant lands, this would begin the age of some of the more magically inclined cats, who would now be more willing to use their magics now that they had less fear of being detected. This would lead to the first necromancers and witches and wizard cats starting to come about. Though they were not yet organized, some used their ability for good, some for evil. But all that matters is that they started to use their abilities now, much more than they ever did before, in these distant lands. Okay, that will be the next section. That was pretty good, like a little introduction to the talking cats, of course, so that everybody can understand what's being talked about in this story before we go into bigger details. Okay, now let us go to the next section. You're still listening, of course, right? You're taking in all of this information, right? You're not like looking at your phone, right? You aren't. Good, good. Keep paying attention, okay? If I'm gonna be writing all this for you, I want you to be paying attention, okay? Okay, good. Now, to the next section. Now, as these distant lands were slowly being colonized, the cats, they started to form like their own little villages and small towns far away from the humans in the parts of the lands that have yet to be explored. The cats, they were not yet ready to be truly discovered by the humans. They kept their interactions to the minimum. Of course, some cats wouldn't follow those restrictions. Some use their magic for nefarious means. They used it to attack humans. Necromancers would rob graveyards to build their little armies. Witches would sometimes abduct humans to test their potions. And wizards would sometimes let a stray fireball loose and accidentally burn down a forest too close to human eyes. But as these incidents were still in the minority, as it was still most cats that would not interact with humans. Because of this, despite these occasional incidents, the humans still did not truly learn of the talking cat species yet. Instead, these isolated incidents of the necromancers and the wizards and witches would instead become legends and folktales and myths known by the settlers in these distant lands. They told tales of these evil monsters that hide in the forest, abducting any humans who dared wandered into these forests by themselves. But as time grew more and more, the land became more and more settled and colonized. The humans, they took up soon, as the humans kept taking more and more lands, the cats, they grew restless, while many still wished to keep hidden away, as while they did have great magical powers, the population of the talking cats was absolutely tiny. In comparison to the humans, they only had small villages. But as the humans took more and more land, and the villages of the cats had to run farther and farther, more and more constantly, the amount of cats that wished to remain hidden grew smaller and smaller, as the amount of cats that wished to take the fight to the humans and stop their ever-growing numbers and ever approaching. As the number of cats who wished to stop the humans ever encroaching land, stop the humans from constantly encroaching upon their lands, faster and faster as by the day. The number of those cats kept growing until eventually some of those magically inclined cats, of course, every talking cat has a little bit of magic, but not all of them are as talented, but the ones that were, they now started to form these organizations, these guilds, and they came together. This would lead to the beginning of the Necromancer Guild, the Witch Guild, and the Wizard Guild. The three big magical guilds formed together to take in every necromancer, every witch, every wizard cats. They all would come together into these guilds and help train new necromancers, new witches, new wizards, and they continued to grow their numbers until it seemed that almost every cat in the villages was a part of one of those guilds. Everyone, no matter how magically talented they were or not, they would be a part of those guilds and know at least one spell. And as this happened, and as the humans kept encroaching upon their territory and villages, the cats, they started to strike back. Gone were the days of isolated incidents where rogue necromancers or witches or wizards would attack humans because of their own personal reasons. All by themselves. Gone were those days. Now the wizards, the witches, the necromancers, while not working together all yet, while not all working together yet, their individual guilds started to attack the frontier human villages, the towns and villages that were on the frontier, the pioneer humans that were exploring new lands. Some of those villages and towns would start to lesser guild would raise down entire towns that dared get too close to their magic ingredients that they cultivated in the forest. The witches, they would also begin to adopt entire towns to experiment with stronger and stronger potions and learn the secrets of the humans and what potions would work best to counter them. And they would learn what potions would work best to stop the humans in their tracks. But this increasing activity from the cats slowly turned the stories of the mere myths and stories and legends into a reality for many humans on the frontier. They started to realize that something was wrong. They realized that perhaps those stories that their ancestors told, their great-great-parents would tell them to keep them away from the forest. As children, perhaps they weren't mere stories. Perhaps there was some truth to them. And so the humans would become more and more aware that something was out there in the far distant lands that they have yet to fully explore. And while the talking cats were not immediately discovered yet, as while they did destroy entire villages, the still lacking communication technologies allowed them to keep their actions under wraps, keep their actions a little hidden for now, but it couldn't stay hidden for much longer as the towns farther and farther away from the frontier would begin to hear rumors of what would happen to these pioneer villages and towns and frontier towns. They heard the rumors of them disappearing in small militias and small armies were sent out to investigate what happened. And eventually, this would culminate into a fight. Okay, I think that's good for that part. I think that works for that section. Let me just get the final touches on it. I think I misspelled a few words. Let me just... There. That's that section done. We're getting kind of close to the end of the story. How long did the story have to be? A few pages. Okay, yeah, I think we're getting pretty close to that. We should be able to end, I think, kinda soon. Just probably a few more sections, I think, and then we should be done. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next section. And so, a battle would begin. The army and militias of the human towns, far away from the frontiers, they would eventually reach the frontier to investigate what was wrong. And as that happened, And as that happened, they found the band of witches, and they fought one another, and the army was able to repel the group of cat witches, forcing them to retreat back to their distant villages with a few casualties. And with that, the humans had concrete proof that there was some other species out there that was attacking them and their villages and towns. They knew there was something out there with powers beyond their imaginations. And so these armies would send back messages to their towns requesting reinforcements to protect these frontier villages. And all while this was happening, the band of the witches would return to their village, telling what happened, and this would lead to a great rage amongst the cats. How dare the humans not only threaten their territory and encroach upon their lands bit by bit, but now they dare to harm their witches. Their poor cats are too now being killed in herds. This enraged the talking cats and would lead to the formation of a great alliance between both the Witches Guild, the Necromancer Guilds, and the Wizards Guild. For the first time, those three groups would come together and put aside their differences to band together against the humans. After forming this alliance, the alliance of the three cat guilds would launch a large attack on one of the biggest frontier villages, or one of the biggest frontier towns, where the majority of the militias and armies were currently stationed, and they would raise the town all the way to ashes, turning most of the population as well into ghouls and skeletons in a great necromancer army. And this would mark the beginning of the Great Cat-Human War, as the cats and the humans started to truly fight one another. Okay, that's the end of that section there. Let me just... Yep, good. Now, let's get to the next section. This will be a pretty important one. And so, the Cats v Human War began. The cats, they continue to attack the frontier villages and towns, turning more and more of them into undead armies, razing them to the ground, poisoning the humans' water supplies with the potions brewed witches. And as this happened, the humans truly starting to realize the threat that the cats were now bringing to their towns and cities. The humans began to amass a bigger and bigger armies, much bigger armies, and the news would begin to leave these distant lands and colonies and would eventually reach the empires that form these colonies. The news would reach them and shock them quite dearly, and they too would begin, not quite yet sending armies, but they began to send scouts they began to send scouts and diplomats to confirm the news of this new species and sent supplies to help out their colonies that were now fighting against this cat threat. This new cat's threat. But as this all happened, the cat continued to fight until eventually there was a great clash between more and more human armies. The armies of the humans began to arrive in the frontier once more, and would clash with the great undead armies, the witches, the wizards, the necromancers. They would clash all with all of them, and the humans, they would begin to lose more and more, and the cats would begin to take more and more land back from the humans. But eventually, the diplomats would arrive in the colonies and learn of the true threat of the cats and go back to their homelands and the empires they came from and request reinforcements that would eventually come to help. But as that happened, the cats, they moved past the frontiers. They began to attack the heart of the colonies, the major cities, the hubs of industrialization, the factories. They would slowly be attacked by the cats. But as this happened, the armies from the distant empires came, and they fought back against the cats. And despite the cats' great strength, despite their mighty magical spells and undead armies, and powerful potions that they contain, that they had to use, despite all of this, the cats were beginning to lose. And there. That's gonna be the end of that section as well. Perfect. Okay, so that's that paragraph and section. Let me just get to the next one. We gotta finish up this essay. It's already been some time. We gotta get this thing done. If we're gonna be able to have you, turn this in before your university class tomorrow. Okay. once was easy, victory after victory for the cats was now simply loss after loss. They kept getting pushed back, bits by bit by the humans, until eventually they were right back where they started. And soon the humans, they would begin to prepare for a great assault on the cat villages. And the cats, realizing the great trouble they now were in, made a very horrible decision. The wizards, the witches, and the necromancers came together to make a powerful secret weapon, much more powerful than what any of them has made by themselves. They came together with all of their abilities combined to craft an unimaginable weapon that would help push back the humans that were now threatening their villages. They created an unimaginably powerful plague meant to destroy the human armies and eventually their towns as well as they retreated. But as they unleashed this great and powerful magical plague upon the humans, they made a horrible mistake. You see, this plague, they underestimated its potential to evolve, and while it was quite powerful at destroying the humans, the plague, it would eventually evolve to also target the cats. And so this plague spread across the lands, wreaking havoc on both cat villages and human towns. Cat villages would disappear overnight. Human towns would also disappear. And eventually, the plague, it would even spread back to the empires as well, wreaking havoc on their populations, bringing them onto the brink of ruin. This would eventually lead to a stalemate, a sort of white peace in the war, as neither side were now capable of continuing the fight, as both sides, both the humans and the cats, were simply now too preoccupied to fight. They were too preoccupied with their populations dwindling by the day, too preoccupied trying to stop this horrible, horrible plague. But no matter what they did, it just would not stop. Whether it was the magic of the cats or the technologies of the humans, the plague could not be stopped. And soon, both of the species, both the humans and the cats, would come to a near point of ruin. Both species were falling apart, their populations falling dangerously low. But as this happened, should be definitely nearing the end now. I think there's only like 1 or 2 sections left that I need to write, okay? So, keep with me, okay? Don't fall asleep yet. You've been really good, okay? You've been really, really good. I appreciate you, keeping awake. I really appreciate you, keeping awake and paying attention. It really makes me happy. I know it probably is a little hard considering you're sick and everything, but I think it's for your best that you try to get some of this information, even if you aren't gonna write this stuff, even if I'm the one writing it for you. But anyways, to the next section. But yes, a miracle would occur. The humans, the cats, they would put aside their differences. They would come together in their time of collective strife and danger to both their species. They came together to combine both of their prowess to find a solution. The magic of the cats, the technology of the humans, they combined the two together to form a cure for the magical plague, and with that, they would spread it across both their civilizations and villages and towns, saving the little bit of population that remained on both sides, saving both of the species. But despite this miracle saving both of the species from extinction, there was still a horrible aftermath that had to be dealt with. As well, both the species may have been able to survive. They may have been able to overcome their differences and work together. Both the sides were still horrifically devastated. Both sides had lost simply too much of their population to continue like they did before the plague occurred. And so the two species came together. The small amount of population that was left, only a few thousand members on each side, they all came together and came to one conclusion: that they must start over. And so the cats brought together all of their technology, all of their magic. The cats came together with all of their magic to devise a spell that would erase the memories of all of the humans, allowing them to start from the beginning. And the humans, they used their technology to clean up all of the rubbles, the ruins of the past, so that no relics of the past would remain when they started over. And so, after this, the humans and the cats came together one last time for now. And the cats, they erased every last human's memory. All of their memory of what had happened. All of their memory of the civilizations they built. The technology they made was gone. They were reset back to the Stone Age. And after this, the cats, they vowed to disappear away from human civilization, back to hidden little villages, farther this time, villages the humans will never discover, at least not until the humans are more advanced this time, advanced enough that perhaps both sides can this time come to a more peaceful resolution and not war. And with this, the great alliance of the cats broke apart. The three magical types of cats, the necromancers, the witches, they broke apart. Great restrictions were placed on what magic was and was not allowed to use. And the cats vowed to never again interfere with the humans until the humans were advanced enough that they could come to a more peaceful solution for both species. And so, the cats let the humans go their separate ways back to the Stone Age, and the cats went off to their distant villages, slowly rebuilding their populations, until eventually the humans would once again develop back until the humans would once again develop their societies once more. And this is the end of the story. I know you're probably confused, right? I mean, this isn't the story you've heard. You probably heard a, completely different story, right? The story about, how humans developed in the world by themselves. How they did all of these crazy stuff, built these great, powerful nations, eventually would learn to fly, fought these great world wars by themselves, and never did they never did come across the cats. Well, not at least until now, in modern day. But you see, you know why we didn't appear until now, until after you humans already had your big wars. You know why? It's because that story I told you, that story did happen. And that's why us talking cats, we had to disappear from human sights until you were more advanced than you were before, until you were even bigger than you were before, and there was less risk of our appearance disrupting your civilization. That's why this time we waited until you were a bit more advanced this time. You see, sure to copy some of your technologies as well while you guys were advancing. So this time we were a lot more similar when we met. We weren't just more magically talented than you, but less less technologically similar. We made sure to study your technology so that we would be more technologically similar as last time. While we did have great magical powers, our technology wasn't up to par with the humans, so that helped us not properly come together as easily with the humans. So this time we made sure that in secrecy we studied you humans' technologies until all the way up until we revealed ourselves to you again, so that we would be a lot more similar technology-wise and could better integrate into your society this time without so much conflict. But yes, this is the history of the world. The first world history before the second one after the reset. The one you humans know a bit better. But I think this will make a great story for your assignments. I'm sure your professor would love this story. I'm absolutely positive it should get you an A, as this story has not been told to many humans. We cats have only recently been telling this story on a few select occasions now that we've started to integrate into human society a few years ago. So this story should be well received by your professor. Though I must say, I'm surprised you never heard of this, because while, yes, it's only mostly us cats who know about the first history before the reset, we have been telling you humans about it, after we revealed ourselves. Not a lot, but we have been starting to talk about it in some of the more scholarly, some of the more academically smart cats have already written a few books about it a few years ago and released it to you humans. So I'm surprised you have never heard of this before. But I guess that goes to show how far us cats still have to go when it comes to integrating into human society. It seems that there's still many things you humans need to learn about us. But I was happy to help you. I was happy to help you with your, I was really happy to help you with your writing your story there. I do once again really hope you get a good grade. But don't be mad at me if your teacher gives you a bad grade, because they don't think this is a non-fiction story because they haven't heard of it. Because it is. If they tell you it isn't a non-fiction story, just tell them actually don't tell them that I wrote it, because then they'll probably give you an F because that's cheating. You're supposed to be the one who wrote it. Just tell at some of the books written by the other talking cats. Because this is a kind of unknown subject still a little amongst humans, but anyways. I will send this document to you so that you can, submit it to your professor. But anyways, I hope you get well soon, okay? I hope your sickness isn't too bad, okay? I hope you do get well soon, and I was really happy. I was really happy to help you out there. But anyways, bye. I hope to see you soon. Do try to see me again once you're not sick, please. I would like for us to hang out. It was very fun spending time with you. Even if it was, for an assignment and everything.